Meet John. John is 52, a project manager, earning $94,000 a year. Last Tuesday at 9 in the morning, John opened his brokerage app and saw a number he had chased for 30 years. $1,200,000. He had finally hit it. A seven-figure net worth. And then John did the exact thing that quietly destroys most new millionaires. He felt like he had arrived. He felt like the hard part was finally over. He let himself relax. Here is what nobody tells you about that number. The moment your net worth hits $1 million is not the finish line. It is the single most dangerous moment in your entire financial life, because 1 million is the exact point where your money can finally outwork you or quietly bury you. Most people celebrate the day they hit it. The ones who stay wealthy get very, very careful. Right now, roughly 24 million Americans have a net worth above $1 million. That is about 1 in every 11 adults. In 2024, alone, more than 1,000 people crossed that line every single day. So this is not some rare, untouchable club. You might be closer to it than you think. But here's the part that should make you a little nervous. A huge share of these new millionaires are what I call paper millionaires. Their wealth is trapped in home equity, not in money they can actually spend. The median home price in America jumped 45% in just 5 years. Millions of ordinary people became millionaires on paper without changing a single habit. And that is exactly why so many of them lose it. They hit the number, they feel rich, and they start spending like the number is a paycheck. It is not. That million is an engine, not a prize. What you do in the first 90 days after crossing that line decides whether it compounds into 5 million or leaks quietly back down toward nothing. This is not about luck. This is about a handful of decisions almost nobody plans for. Here's what the data actually shows. Let me show you two people who both hit $1 million in the same year. John, who we just met, and Carla, John's coworker. Carla is 32, a marketing lead earning $88,000 a year. Both of them crossed 1 million within a few months of each other. Same office, same salary range, same exact milestone. But watch what happens next, because the gap between them will become enormous. When Carla hit her million, she did what feels completely natural to almost everyone. She celebrated. She traded her paid-off Camry for a $58,000 SUV. She upgraded her apartment, adding $900 a month in rent. She told a few friends the good news. She started saying yes to every dinner, every weekend trip, every upgrade. In her mind, she had made it. The struggle was finally over. And every one of those choices felt earned, because in a way it was. Carla worked hard for that $1 million. Nobody handed it to her. John hit the same number and did something that felt almost boring by comparison. He changed nothing about his life for 90 days. Same car, same apartment, same grocery list, same routine. Instead, he sat down at his kitchen table and did the math. He asked himself one question that Carla never stopped to ask. What is this million actually for? That single question is the entire difference between a million that grows and a million that vanishes. Let me keep this fair. Carla is not reckless. She is not stupid. She did exactly what most people do the moment they feel rich. And what most people do is quietly destroy their first million without ever realizing it. Run the numbers with me, and you will see exactly why. Here's the first thing nobody tells you about $1 million. At a safe withdrawal rate of 4%, $1 million produces about $40,000 a year. That is it. $40,000. And that is before taxes even touch it. Now compare that number to reality. The average American household spends about $78,000 every single year. So the number that felt like infinite freedom actually covers a little more than half of a normal life. This is the trap of the big round number. $1 million sounds like the end of every money problem you have ever had. But on paper, it spends like a modest salary you cannot even see. John understood this the moment he hit it. Carla did not. She saw 1 million and her brain heard the words rich forever. Her brain was wrong, and her new SUV was the very first piece of proof. Here is what actually happens to $1 million when you leave it completely alone. This is the part that Carla never gave her money the chance to do. To go from $100,000 to $1 million, you have to grow your money by a factor of 10. That is brutal. That is years of saving, cutting, grinding, and staying patient. But to go from 1 million to 2 million, you only have to double it. A factor of 2. That is not the same mountain you climbed before. It is a hill. Financial data shows the second million can arrive roughly 2.5 times faster than the first one did. Why does that happen? Because at $1 million, you are finally no longer climbing alone. You have hired a second worker, and that worker never sleeps, never quits, and never asks for a raise. His name is compound interest, so run the numbers with me. $1 million, growing at 7% a year, left completely untouched, becomes almost $2 million in just 10 years. You did not save a single extra dollar to make that happen. The money did all of the work by itself. That is the exact engine Carla sold off to make payments on an SUV. Here is what most people get completely wrong about the danger at this level. They think the biggest risk to $1 million is a market crash. It is not. The real risk is you. The most dangerous force at $1 million is a quiet, patient thief called lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is when your spending slowly rises to match your new sense of status. It never once feels like a mistake. It always feels like a reward you finally deserve. Carla added $900 a month in rent for the nicer apartment. That is $10,800 a year. Now, invest that same money instead at 7% for 20 years, and it becomes over $440,000. So read that carefully. Carla did not really spend $900 a month. She spent $440,000 of her future wealth, one comfortable evening at a time. That is the true price tag of the upgrade, and nobody ever sits her down to show her that number. Here is what nobody tells you about the new car specifically. Carla traded a paid-off Camry for a $58,000 SUV. The moment she drove it off the dealership lot, it began losing value. A brand new car loses roughly 20% of its value in the first year alone. That is over $11,000, simply gone while she was still making monthly payments on it. John kept his old Camry. It still runs fine. The difference between them was never about taste. It was about direction. Carla moved money out of the engine and into a depreciating metal box. John left every single dollar inside the engine where it could keep doubling. Most people believe that a millionaire is supposed to drive like a millionaire. But the actual millionaires I have studied drive like the number still matters to them, because to them, it genuinely does. Here is the tax trap that almost nobody plans for in advance. When Carla wanted cash for her new lifestyle, she started selling off her investments. And every single sale triggered a tax bill she never budgeted for. Long-term capital gains can be taxed up to 20% at the federal level, plus your state can take a cut on top of that. So to actually put $50,000 in her pocket, she sometimes had to sell $60,000 or more. John did the exact opposite. He learned where each of his dollars actually lived. He knew which dollars sat in a taxable brokerage account, which sat inside his 401k, and which sat inside his Roth. That skill is called asset location, and done right, it can save you tens of thousands of dollars over a single decade. Most people never bother to learn it. They just sell whatever is easiest to sell and quietly hand the government the difference every April. Here is a mistake that hides inside the very best of intentions. After hitting 1 million, Carla decided she wanted to protect it, so she moved a large chunk of it into cash. It felt safe. It was not. Inflation is a silent tax that never once stops working against you. Food prices rose more than 23% in just 4 years. Transportation costs climbed over 34% in the same window. Money that is sitting in a low-interest account does not politely stay still. It shrinks. $100,000 in cash, earning almost nothing, quietly loses thousands of dollars of real buying power every single year. John kept only a true emergency fund in cash, roughly 6 months of expenses, and not a dollar more. Everything else stayed invested, working, and growing faster than inflation could eat it. Safe is not the same thing as smart. Sometimes the move that looks the safest is actually the slowest leak in the boat. Now, let me introduce a third person, because she represents millions of you watching this. Meet Diana. Diana is 34, and on paper she is a millionaire too. But Diana's million is almost entirely locked inside her house. Her home value climbed, her mortgage shrank, and one day the equity crossed $1 million in total net worth. Diana felt rich. She looked rich, but here is the problem. She cannot buy groceries with a kitchen. She cannot pay a medical bill with a hallway. Diana is what the numbers call house rich and cash poor. When her car needed a $4,000 repair, she had to put it on a credit card at 24% interest, sitting on top of $1 million net worth. That is the paper millionaire trap. $1 million in home equity is real wealth, but it is frozen wealth. It cannot compound for you the way invested dollars can, and it cannot rescue you in an emergency without you selling or borrowing against your own roof. So if your million lives inside your walls, understand exactly what it is and what it is not. It is a milestone. It is not a plan. Here is what happens when the market finally drops, because it always eventually drops. This is where most new millionaires blow themselves up. When John's portfolio fell 18% during a rough stretch, his net worth dropped by nearly $200,000 on paper in a matter of weeks. It felt awful, but John did absolutely nothing. He did not sell. He knew that a paper loss only becomes a real loss the moment you hit the sell button. Carla, meanwhile, panicked. She sold near the bottom to protect what was left, and then she watched from the sidelines as the market recovered every dollar and then climbed even higher. Selling in fear locked in her losses permanently. The market does not punish the people who stay. It punishes the people who flinch. Your behavior in a downturn matters far more than your returns during a boom. Here is what the truly wealthy do at this level that the rest of us almost never see. John did something that sounds boring but is genuinely powerful. He bought protection before he bought anything fun. He checked his insurance first. He made sure his term life policy actually covered his family if something happened to him. Then he added an umbrella liability policy, which costs just a few $100s a year and shields your entire net worth from a single lawsuit or accident. Because when you have $1 million, you quietly become a target. And one bad accident can undo an entire decade of discipline. Carla skipped every bit of it because insurance feels like paying a bill for a disaster that will never actually come. Right up until the day it does, the wealthy protect the downside first, and then they chase the upside. Almost everyone else does it in exactly the wrong order. Here is a cost that quietly ambushes new millionaires, and it has nothing to do with luxury. It is healthcare. A single couple retiring today may need around $172,000 after tax just to cover medical costs in retirement, and long-term care can run $100,000 a year per person if it is ever needed. Carla looked at her million and pictured vacations. She never once pictured a nursing bill. John did. He knew that a real chunk of his million was already spoken for by future healthcare, so he never counted it as free spending money. That single mental adjustment is why John's million feels smaller to him than Carla's felt to her, and it is exactly why John's million will actually last. The people who plan for the boring costs are the people who never get ambushed by them. Here is a decision that sounds smart but can quietly cost you a fortune. The moment Carla hit 1 million, a financial advisor offered to manage everything for her. For just 1% a year, 1% sounds tiny. It is not. 1% of $1 million is $10,000 every single year, and it only grows as your portfolio grows. Over 30 years, that 1% fee can quietly eat hundreds of thousands of dollars of your returns. Now, a genuinely good advisor can absolutely be worth it, especially for taxes and planning. But you have to know exactly what you are paying and exactly what you are getting for it. John chose a flat fee planner he paid once a year for advice, and then he invested in low-cost index funds himself. Carla handed over 1% forever and never did the math on what forever actually costs. Fees are invisible, which is exactly why they are so dangerous. Here is the one document almost every new millionaire forgets, and it can undo everything. When you have $1 million, you need a plan for what happens to it if you are gone. John spent one afternoon setting up a simple will, naming beneficiaries on every account, and creating a basic estate plan. It was not expensive, and it was not complicated. Carla never got around to it. She kept meaning to. Here is why it matters: money. Without named beneficiaries can get stuck in a slow, public, expensive process called probate, where the courts and the lawyers get paid before your family does. $1 million can shrink by tens of thousands and take years to reach the people you love, all because of a form that nobody ever filled out. Protecting your wealth is not only about growing it, it is about making sure it lands exactly where you want it to land. Here's a mistake that feels responsible but slowly bleeds you dry. When you hit $1 million, it is tempting to think the saving part is finally finished. Meet Maya. Maya is 28, and she is the disciplined one. When Maya crossed 1 million, she made one quiet decision that changed everything. She kept contributing to her investments exactly like before. She did not stop. She did not coast. Every payday, the same automatic transfer went out, whether she felt like it or not, because Maya understood something Carla did not. The habit that built the first million is the same habit that builds the fourth one. The moment you stop feeding the engine, you are asking 100% of your future growth to come from the market alone, with zero help from you. Maya kept her hands on both levers. Carla let go of both. 10 years from now, the distance between those two women will be measured in millions of dollars. Here is the quietest mistake of all, and honestly the most human one. When Carla hit $1 million, she told people, a few close friends, some family, a couple of coworkers over lunch. It felt good to say it out loud. And then the requests started rolling in. Can you help me with rent this month? Can you cover dinner tonight? You can clearly afford it. Can you lend me a little? You are rich now. Money changes how the people around you see you, and it changes how they treat you. John told almost no one. Not because he was cold or secretive, but because he understood that $1 million is a private tool, not a public headline. Most people simply cannot stay quiet at this milestone. The ones who actually protect their wealth learn that silence, at this level, is its own kind of strategy. Here is the temptation that ruins more new millionaires than any crash ever could. Once you have $1 million, everyone suddenly has a hot tip for you. A friend swears by a coin that tripled. A coworker has a startup that cannot lose. Carla, feeling rich and a little bored, put $80,000 into a speculative bet a friend promised would double. Within 6 months, it was worth $22,000. She had spent 30 years earning that money and 6 months gambling it away. John got the same tips. He said no every time. He knew a simple truth. You only have to get rich once. After that, the entire game changes from growing your money to not losing it. Chasing higher returns when you have already won is not ambition. It is how winners hand their winnings back. The boring index fund that carried you to $1 million is still the right vehicle at $1 million. Here is a habit that protects you from your own worst impulses. John built what he called a fun bucket. Every year, he allowed himself to spend a fixed, guilt-free amount, maybe 1% of his net worth, on whatever he wanted. A trip, a gadget, a nice dinner, no math and no guilt. Everything outside that bucket stayed untouchable, no exceptions. This is the trick almost nobody talks about. Discipline does not mean never enjoying your money. It means deciding in advance exactly how much you get to enjoy, so the other 99% can keep compounding in peace. Carla had no bucket and no boundary, so every purchase quietly borrowed from the engine. John drew one clear line, and that single line is what let him feel rich without ever actually becoming poor again. A budget at $1 million is not about scarcity. It is about protecting the machine that made you free. Here is the very first move John made the moment the number hit, and you can copy it exactly. Before he told anyone, before he touched a dollar, he wrote down 3 numbers on a single sheet of paper. How much of his million was actually invested and growing? How much was frozen in his house? And how much real cash he had for emergencies? Most people never write these 3 numbers down, so they genuinely do not know if they are truly wealthy or just wealthy on paper. John did know. Then he set one rule for himself. Any decision over $1,000 had to wait 72 hours before he acted on it. That simple pause killed almost every impulse purchase before it happened. Carla acted on feelings the same week she hit her number. John acted on a plan 3 days at a time. The difference between building wealth and blowing it is rarely intelligence. It is almost always the gap between a plan written down and a feeling acted on. Write your 3 numbers down. Then wait 72 hours before you spend a cent of the fourth. Here is one last piece of math, and it ties the whole thing together. Add up everything Carla did in her first year as a millionaire. The SUV that lost $11,000. The rent upgrade, worth $440,000 in lost future growth. The taxes she never planned for. The cash she let inflation quietly erode. The panic sale near the bottom of the market, none of it felt reckless in the moment. Every single choice felt reasonable, even smart, but stacked together. Over 20 years, those reasonable choices cost Carla more than her original $1 million. Meanwhile, John did almost nothing, and doing almost nothing turned out to be the most profitable decision of his entire life. Wealth at this level is not built by brilliant moves. It is protected by boring discipline. Run the numbers, and the boring path wins nearly every single time. Now here is the part that changes absolutely everything. Everybody thinks the hard part is getting to $1 million. It is not. The hard part is doing nothing once you finally get there. Sit with that for a second. John's entire advantage over Carla was not some secret investment. It was not a special account or a hot stock tip. It was 90 days of doing nothing while the number quietly sat there and grew on its own. Carla's million is already shrinking, one reasonable purchase at a time. John's million, left completely alone at 7%, will pass $2 million before he turns 63, and he will not have saved another single dollar to get there. Same job, same salary, same starting number, one different decision. Here is the one line I want you to remember from all of this. Your first million is the last one you will ever build with your own 2 hands. Every million after that, your money builds for you, but only if you are disciplined enough to leave it completely alone. The moment you hit $1 million is not the moment you finally get to relax. It is the exact moment your money becomes stronger than your paycheck. And the only way to lose that gift is to spend the engine the very day it starts running. So the next time you picture yourself hitting that million, do not picture the celebration. Picture the 90 quiet days that come right after. Picture keeping the old car in the driveway. Picture the same boring grocery list you already have. Picture the number you never once mentioned to anyone. Because that, and not the party, is what actually turns $1 million into 5. If this video showed you something you did not know was happening with your money, subscribe to Desmond Wealth and hit that notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. And the next time someone tells you that $1 million means you have finally made it, ask them one simple question. Made it to what? Because $1 million is not a finish line at all. It is the very first day your money clocks in and goes to work for you. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's celebration.